Good news friends, Sigma have finally announced a brand new 35mm f1.4 DG which has been specifically designed for mirrorless cameras. Question is though, is it actually better than the old one? Well, I was lucky enough to get an early hands-on with a copy of this new lens to find out for myself. The new 35mm is very slightly shorter and lighter than the old one, though it's not a dramatic change, with the new design being just 110 grams lighter and around 1 centimeter shorter in length compared to its predecessor. Though I am certainly not complaining, the less weight I have to attach to the front of my camera, the better in my opinion, and as my wife keeps telling me, it's not all about length, it's about how you use it. In any case, both of these lenses feel very nicely balanced on the front of my Sony a7 Mark III, but you can definitely tell that this new lens has been crafted for mirrorless cameras, as opposed to the older model that was originally made for DSLRs and then later retrofitted with an awkward bit on the bottom just to make it fit onto Sony E-mount cameras. Both of these lenses have a dust and splash-proof design with further weather sealing around the metal lens mount in the form of a rubber O-ring to help prevent any nasties getting inside your camera body whilst the lens is attached. Both lenses also feature a rubberized focus ring that is nice and smooth to turn. When switching over to manual focus mode, although the new design uses a focus by wire system, it's actually pretty responsive and nice to use. There is a very small delay between you turning the focus ring and the focus actually shifting, which is kind of the nature of focus by wire systems unfortunately, but I didn't find it to be that much of a problem. The older lens on the other hand has a traditional mechanical MF dial, so alterations to manual focus are instant and super accurate. When it comes to features, the new lens has been significantly modernized and includes a manual MF to AF switch, a customizable AF lock button, as well as a manual aperture ring that can be declicked for video work or locked into auto mode so that you can simply adjust the aperture using the back of your camera like you would do with most other lenses. The old lens on the other hand is pretty sparse in terms of features in comparison. It includes an MF to AF switch and a focus distance indicator, but that's about it. One final observation that I did find quite interesting is that the front element of this new lens is actually quite flat, whilst the older lens has a slightly bulbous front element. One small benefit to this is that the front element is now better protected by the filter thread, as it's not protruding outwards in the middle like the old lens does. I should also add that both lenses come boxed with a plastic lens hood, though the hood that's included with the new lens includes a nice rubberized texture on it, which also comes with a lifetime guarantee of picking up as much dust as humanly possible. Oh, and it also has a lock button on the side to keep it locked in place whilst attached, whereas the old lens has a more traditional lens hood design. So when it comes to scoring, I'm going to have to give both lenses a point for build, as they're both solid and very nicely put together. Though for handling, the new Sigma definitely has the edge, as it's slightly smaller, lighter, and includes a much nicer array of features. So how do these lenses compare in terms of price? Well, at launch, the new Sigma 35mm will be priced at £799 or $899, whilst the old lens is currently priced on Amazon for around £710 or $799. Though my gut tells me that the old one will probably drop in price after a month or so of the new one becoming available, but when it comes to scoring, we have to judge these lenses on their current price in order to keep it a fair test. So with that in mind, I'm going to give the point to the new Sigma because although it is a little bit more expensive than the old one, the amount of features that are included on this thing just makes it a much better option in terms of value for money. Both of these lenses work with my Sony a7 Mark III's IAF and face detection, and when it comes to focusing speed, they are both super quick and accurate to focus. They even performed really well in super low light conditions too, without any signs of hunting. When shooting in burst mode at f1.4, both of these lenses were able to keep locked onto Georgia as she walked towards the camera without missing focus once, which in my opinion is pretty impressive given the super shallow depth of field we're working with. So with a pretty flawless performance, both lenses grab another point. These lenses even work flawlessly in video mode too. When shooting wide open at f1.4, they were able to track Georgia as she walked towards the camera at a regular pace. They could even keep up with her when she walked towards the camera at a faster pace too. Now, although both lenses have internal focusing mechanisms, the old lens utilizes a hypersonic motor, which is what the HSM part of its name signifies, whereas the new lens uses a stepping motor. The stepping motor they've added to the new 35mm is ridiculously quiet when it comes to AF noise. I mean, not that the old one was particularly noisy, but you can definitely hear some motor noise being picked up by the camera's built-in microphone when amplified. Focus breathing is still a problem with this new lens with no noticeable improvement compared to the old one, which might be disappointing if this kind of thing really bothers you. But look on the bright side, if you want your video footage to look like you're jetting off into warp speed every single time you do a focus pull, then this might not be such a bad thing. But focus breathing aside, both lenses deserve a point in this round for their almost identical performance. Both of them create a nice smooth defocused area when shooting wide open at f1.4, which looks great for portraits. When it comes to bokeh balls, although both of them create round orbs in the center that turn more elliptical as they get closer to the edge of the frame, the orbs generated by the new lens have less of a point to them and they're more of an oval shape rather than a cat's eye, which I kind of actually prefer. So in this round, it's a bit too close to call an overall winner, so it's another tie. Although flaring is prominent with both of these lenses, the new 35mm definitely handles it slightly better. The result produced by the new lens just doesn't look quite as washed out when compared to the old lens. And I actually prefer the flares it creates. They just look more cinematic with that nice blue tint. But what do you guys think? Let me know in a comment below. When shooting wide open at f1.4, both lenses have a touch of barrel distortion, but nothing too crazy. At the center, the new lens is slightly sharper than the old one, and there's none of that horrible blue fringing that the old one was notorious for. At the edges though, the old 35mm lens is actually the sharper of the two, though it does still have that blue fringing problem. At the minimum focusing distance, the old lens is actually marginally sharper, but to be honest, I doubt many people will actually be shooting this close up with this kind of focal length, as you're going to get a lot of distortion from the wide angle. In real life though, these subtle differences are pretty hard to spot, and both lenses are capable of capturing lovely looking portraits with nice subject separation. Neither lens has any notable colour cast, so skin tones look nice and natural without the need for any major tinkering in post-production. When I was looking through the shots I captured during the shoot, I was absolutely spoilt for choice. Next to none of the images were misfocused, despite shooting at f1.4 for the entirety of the shoot. So when it comes to awarding points, although it's been extremely close, I think I'm going to award the point to the new lens for a few reasons. Although when it comes to overall sharpness, both of these lenses definitely have their pros and their cons. For me, the big improvement with this new lens is that it no longer has that horrible blue fringing problem, which, as I've talked about numerous times in previous videos, it's something that I've noticed really affects the quality of my own work when shooting in areas of high contrast. So going back to my original question, is this new lens better than the old one? Well, categorically, yes. It's essentially a refined version of a lens that was already pretty damn good. Is it the best 35mm lens that Sigma has to offer? Well, be sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already to find out the answer to that exact question this Friday, where I'll be testing all 4 of Sigma's 35mm lenses against one another. Or if you happen to be watching this in the future, then it's probably here. You can just click here if you want. That'd be good. Thanks.